Okay, hi. Welcome everybody, good morning. Welcome to today's webinar, Disaster Recovery for Small Businesses, presented with the Chino Valley Chamber of Commerce. We're going to introduce some valuable resources for dealing with disasters, including earthquakes, fires, and of course the pandemic. We're also going to hear from our keynote speaker, California State Treasurer Fiona Ma. So I'd like to first welcome Jim Gallagher from the Chino Valley Chamber of Commerce for some introductory remarks.
All right, thank you, Angela. My name is Jim Gallagher. I'm on the board of directors of the Chino Valley Chamber of Commerce, and it's our pleasure today to host this disaster recovery seminar. And first, I want to introduce our keynote speaker, Fiona Ma. As you know, the Chino Valley Chamber of Commerce has been reaching out to small business over the past few months, especially during the pandemic, to try to bring to them the resources that they need in order to survive. We're in unprecedented times here, and we're really honored today to have our keynote speakers present to us what resources are available. So our first speaker is Fiona Ma. She's a certified public accountant, has been serving as the California State Treasurer since January 7th, 2019. She was elected to this post in November 6, 2018, with more votes than any other candidate for treasurer in the state's history. She served as a member of the California Board of Equalization as well from 2015 to 2019, and she also served in the California State Assembly and on the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. So with these credentials, we're really honored to have her come today to share with us what we can do to help us not only with this disaster, but other disasters that we know do affect small business. So Fiona, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim. And I'm sorry we're not able to meet in person, but hopefully next year we will be able to again have in-person meetings. So as your California State Treasurer, I am your state banker. So every revenue, fine, fee, interest, penalty comes into my bank, totaling about $2.6 trillion every year. I also manage a short-term portfolio of about $100 billion. 70% of it represents the state's idle cash, and 30% represents 22 local governments. So I thank Chino and Chino Hills for placing your trust in us for investing your idle funds. And I also issue all the debt, the general obligation bonds, revenue bonds, as well as the agent of sale for the UC system and the CSU. And even during this pandemic in April, we were the first state to go back into the market. We weren't sure what would happen, but we were very favorably welcomed. We got great rates, and to me, it signified that people are still very supportive about California and our diversity and our economy and our recovery even during this pandemic. Besides that, I also chair 15 different boards and commissions, everything to do with affordable housing, hospitals, schools, public transportation, green energy, advanced manufacturing, and including 3 savings programs. Cal Savers, which is a new program for those small businesses that do not offer a retirement plan for their individuals. If you employ 5 employees or more, eventually you will have to sign up your employees with our program, and it will help them start to save. So think of it like as a Roth IRA program. The account stays in that person's name, and after you upload your employee roster to us, the business owner will have no other financial or legal liability for these type of retirement plans. So it's a great opportunity for small business owners. And again, if you have 5 or more employees, you will eventually have to sign up, and our website is www.calsavers.com, and we have people who can help you with this process, but it's a great opportunity for your employees. Affordable housing, I know, has been a big issue, and we are working very closely with our sister agencies to push out as many applications as we can. So over the next 3 to 5 years, I believe that you will find more affordable housing projects happening in your neighborhood. I also have a sales tax exemption program for those of you who are thinking about investing large amounts of money in equipment that would green and clean the environment. You may be eligible to apply for a sales tax exemption, so you can save that 7.5% to 11% sales tax that you would pay on this large piece of equipment. And many of the companies are really seeing this as a game changer, but the program is oversubscribed. However, the earlier you get your application in, the sooner you may be eligible for that credit. We meet about 4 times a year to allocate these sales tax exemption awards. CalAble is also another savings program that we have. For those of you who have been diagnosed with a disability before the age of 26, you now will be able to save money in that person's name, up to $15,000 without losing many of those precious benefits. We are working with the federal government to expand the age of disability to 46 years old, because we understand that some people do have a disability later on in life, and they also should be able to save money in their accounts. So stay tuned with that. Now, the governor's office, Governor Gavin Newsom, has amazing programs also for small businesses under his Go Biz program. One is Cal Gold, which if you are a business and you're looking to locate in a specific part of the state, there may be federal, state, and local permit licenses and certificates that you will need to acquire. And so we encourage you to go to the Cal Gold's website and input your destination, and it will let you know, depending on your industry, what types of permits, certificates, and others that you may need to consider before you're able to open and operate. The California Competes tax credit. This is for companies who want to locate and grow and stay here in California. This is an income tax credit that can be used over the 6 years, and it's really great for startups and those businesses that don't generate a lot of income early on, but do employ a lot of people. And if you are in an industry and commit to hiring a certain amount of people and invest a certain amount, there are milestones, but this is also a very popular program that is oversubscribed over the last 2 years. But again, Cal Competes is one of the ways that we are incentivizing companies to come and stay and grow here in California. The iBank also has a loan loss guarantee program. So if you are a small business and you are having problems finding traditional financing through the banks and credit unions, we have 2 programs that you should look into. Number one, it is the iBank small business loans. And they provide a loan loss guarantee so that the lenders are encouraged to lend to those that may not have the best credit score or may be a little bit of a riskier type of customer. So iBank has those loans, and then my program under CalCap for a small business, we provide a loan loss guarantee, again, for lenders to lend to higher risk, business owners, small business owners. So consider us your lender of last resort, iBank, as well as my CalCap for small business. International trade and investment. As the 5th largest economy, we do business, both exports and imports. And so the governor's office under GoBiz has a very robust international trade and investment programs. They offer export assistance for those that want to export to other countries. Also imports for those that want to invest in California. It's called Invest in California, and it is services for foreign investors, including site selection, logistical assistance, demographic, wage, tax, utility cost data, quality of life facts for workers and families, and of course, networking opportunities. We also offer an R&D credit. For those of you who are in certain industries that are doing research and development, you may qualify for this credit through the Franchise Tax Board. As well as international collaboration. GoBiz works with lots of groups from around the world, and supports agreements between California and foreign, local, regional, and federal governments. And we also help California exporters and financial investors, as I mentioned earlier. We also have a new employment credit. This is a California tax credit that encourages hiring and employment in the state. This credit was recently extended to January 1st, 2026, and it is available for businesses located in designated areas in the state that hire qualified full-time employees, receive a tentative credit reservation for that employee and other requirements. We also offer manufacturing and research and development equipment exemption. So for those research and developers, you may be able to qualify for a partial exemption of your sales and use tax for certain manufacturing and research and development equipment purchases and leases. And this is really to encourage more manufacturing here in the state of California. I also, on my website, www.treasure.ca.gov, I have two buttons. One is our COVID-19 official state website that has all of the governor's executive orders, new rules that apply during this COVID time, as well as links to different state agencies and programs and resources. The other link is my COVID-19 resource guides, where my external affairs team update these resource guides on a real-time basis so that you are not applying for a loan or a grant program that has expired. So we encourage you to go to that button. And again, the resource guides are for small businesses, individuals, seniors, nonprofits, tax relief, as well as food access. And again, they're updated on a real-time basis, so you're not wasting your time. So I encourage you to go to my website. And if we have not answered any questions here today, or you're having a hard time getting through to an agency because nobody's answering the phone, or it's busy, or you're looking for your PPP loan or your unemployment insurance check, please email me at askfiona@treasure.ca.gov. Catherine Asprey monitors that email line and is going to do the best she can to get an answer to your question or connect you with the person that can answer your question. So I know it's really tough out there during COVID. The governor did dial back some of the closure or opening rules because of our spikes that we are seeing around the state. So the faster that we can get back to business depends on how good we are as a state in wearing our mask, watching our distance, washing our hands, because ultimately we are all in this together. And the sooner we can open up, the sooner we can get back to business. So I thank all of you for coming, and Jim Gallagher and the Chino and Chino Hills Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring us here today.
Thank you. Are you taking any questions right now?
I can, or I can put the information in the chat room while others are speaking.
Okay. So, all right, I'll post questions in the chat room. So,
okay, sounds good.
I do have a few questions, but thank you. That was excellent. Every time you've appeared before us, I think you've brought in a treasure trove, and that's a pun on words, by the way, a treasure trove of assistance that I think a lot of small businesses are not really aware of. And
right.
It's very helpful. And it's almost like a fire hose, the way it comes at us. But thank you very much for posting that in the chat as well, and we'll capture that. So
thank you.
Our next speaker I'd like to introduce is Daniel Sieu. He's the project director for Minority Business Development Agency located at the Pasadena Business Center. He's also part of the U.S. Department of Commerce. And Daniel, maybe give us a few words about yourself as well before you speak about what programs are available. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Dan Sieu, Director of Pasadena Business Center under MBDA, U.S. Department of Commerce. During regular times, we assist businesses, generally medium and large-sized businesses, in growing, expanding their sales, government contracts, strategic relations, import-export, but basically anything you know to expand your business in a really large way and hire a lot of people. That's what we do. During the pandemic, we have additional programs which help all small businesses trying to recover from the pandemic. It doesn't matter size or geographic location. If you need assistance, then we're here to help. What I've noticed, and I'm sure a lot of you realize too, that for one, stimulus, two, from the federal government may or may not happen. We've been strung up for quite a while, and if you're waiting for that, you might be wanting to consider your situation, because the longer we go on, the worse it's going to get. And for a lot of businesses, there's going to be no recovery. There's a lot of folks out there hurting. A lot of businesses are going to fall through the cracks, and so you really need to be very proactive, and you need to be self-motivated to find a better way to do business, a different path, a different additional revenue source, or in some cases evaluate your situation, whether it is going to even be feasible to continue along the line of business you're doing now, because a lot of businesses are even when everything's reopened, they're going to have a really hard time. For example, tourism, hotel, these kind of businesses are taking it really hard. They're practically 100% closed right now. And whether they're going to recover, unclear. So you all, if you're in these really hard-hit industries, you might want to talk to whether the counselors under WS International here or under our MBDA program. We could try to give you some advice, different ways to change your game plan, so you're not just sitting around hopefully waiting for the different government agencies to help bail you out, because in a lot of cases it hasn't been very effective. And as I say, the longer things go on, throwing money at a bad situation isn't always the best situation. You need to be thinking of other ways to survive this pandemic, and then of course afterward, there's a long survival process to happen after that. So if you need or want to speak to someone in regard to your specific situation, we're going to be posting our contact information both for the Pasadena Business Center, WS International, and please reach out and contact us, because now's the time that we're heading into the holidays where things slow down, where you can give some really clear thought as to what direction you want to take with your business to survive the pandemic and survive after the pandemic. So in that, look forward to speaking to whoever is of interest to talk to us, and I'll hand it back to you, Jim. Thank you.
Wait a minute. All right, thanks. Please unmute me.
You're unmuted. Please go
Okay.
ahead.
Thank you. Every time I unmuted it, muted again. So Daniel, excellent. You're an excellent resource. I understand you have also some a closer affiliation here with us in the Inland Empire. Would you mind talking about that a little bit?
Yes, I am part of the CDAC, which is the California Inland Empire District Export Council, which promotes export overseas for local Inland Empire businesses, which a lot of people don't realize there's a whole new world outside of the U.S. and products from the U.S. are in great demand. We try to help facilitate those relations, help you to get into exporting if you're not into it already. And so Bob, in fact, is on the board of CDAC. I've been a member for quite a few years, and we try to tie all our resources together to help get American businesses exporting.
Great, thank you. And I think with the explosion that we're seeing out here at the Ontario airport and the rise of distribution centers that we're seeing affords itself to support that. So thank you. It's my honor to introduce our next guest speaker, because we have a bunch of them here today. There's Amy Bach. She's part of Insurance for Disaster Recovery expert. She's been a professional advocate for insurance policyholders since 1984, so she's got some experience here. She's also an attorney since 1989. While she practiced insurance regulatory law and she represented clients on litigation matters, she also co-founded the United Policyholders in 1991. So she's a pretty busy person. She's also a nationally recognized expert on insurance claim and legal matters, and she has served as an official consumer representative to the National Association of Insurance Commissioners since the year 2009. And this is her second term, I might add, as an appointed member of the Federal Advisory Committee on Insurance. So I think with these kind of credentials, we have in store for us a very interesting presentation. So go ahead, Amy. And she's muted, I believe. Unmute yourself.
There we go. I see what you meant. Thank you so much, Jim and Treasurer Ma, for including my information in today's program, and just for pulling together all the resources. I echo Jim's comments about just how impressive the array of programs to help small businesses are that Treasurer Ma outlined, and that I think a lot of businesses don't know about. So it's great that you pulled this together. So yeah, my focus today will just be to give the business members that are tuning in or that may watch the recording down the road just a couple of high-level points to consider about insurance on your business. My organization, as you heard, has been around for almost 30 years. Our primary focus is making sure that the policyholder gets a fair shake when they have a loss that requires them to file a claim. And we do that primarily through something called the Roadmap to Recovery program, which we offer throughout California. And during COVID, we have pivoted to doing mostly online. So we are doing, while normally after wildfires, we would be physically in a community at a church or a gym or a public building and inviting the public in, the impacted households and businesses in, and speaking to them live. We are doing that virtually now. So if any of your members have an open claim related to one of the fires, I would strongly encourage you to email info@uphelp.org and get your name on our mailing list. For those of you, and then for those of you who are dialing in or have not been touched by a disaster, I'm going to touch on a few things about your business insurance, keeping good records, having them in a place where they'd be accessible if you had to evacuate or if your premises were to become inaccessible to you for some reason. And then I want to touch briefly on COVID and just share a couple of resources from my screen, from my organization's website. So everything we offer is free of charge. We're a charity. We're a 501c3. Most of our funding comes from grants. And we very often work in partnership with public officials. So just like Treasurer Ma recognizes the value of our information, the counties of Sonoma, Santa Cruz, have Napa are official partners of ours. And so we do a lot of this kind of town hall type of an event where we're getting information out to you, the public, that hopefully will be answering questions that you have. So in terms of your business and making sure that you have the insurance that you need, I'm going to briefly share with you, this is a screenshot from our website, uphelp.org. We have a claim guidance library just for businesses where we talk about, we give you some very basic claim tips, tips for maximizing your business interruption benefits after a loss. And then we hit on, you'll find some of the issues that people have, businesses have, where it turned out that the insurance that they thought they had, your business owner's package, which most of you will have a property insurance policy, you'll have a CGL, comprehensive general liability, then you'll have, of course, some sort of employer liability depending on your size. You may have, presumably you have workers' comp, you have a package. To my mind, the best thing is to have a really good broker and somebody that really takes time with you every year to really review your business's operations and your needs. Because what we find a lot of the time, when there has been a loss, you see something like cautionary coverage tales from the trenches, sewer and drain backup. We find that the business thought they had insurance for a loss, and it turns out that there was some fine print in the policy that has become an obstacle to collecting benefits after a loss. And my organization, although we're a consumer group and we're for the public, we are very, we're not anti-insurance. We think the insurance system is really important. And part of what we're doing is just trying to help make it work for the consumer better, because particularly now in an era where we seem to be having increasingly severe weather events, strange weather events, flooding where we didn't used to have flooding, tornadoes where we never had them before. Insurers are all over it. They have noticed it. They have been ratcheting back coverage on a pretty steady basis. So it's very important that you work with an agent, an insurance agent broker that is really proactive and is staying abreast of the ways in which your business insurance may not cover things that it used to cover, and then give you a chance to shop the market for a policy that would not have that kind of a hole. And the perfect example is sewer and drain backup, water damage, mold. Those are areas where insurers have been fine-tuning and the language and excluding more of those type losses. So the best thing is to have those conversations now, not after you've had a loss. Talk to your agent or broker about your water damage. Talk to your agent or broker about any other kind of exposures that you may have because of the nature of your business. And just really make sure that what you're paying for is what you need and is going to be there for you. So that's very important, particularly with regard to water damage. So as to, and keeping good records, a lot of small businesses just do not have the time to keep really good inventory records or keep really good photographic evidence of your property, of the premises, of your inventory, things like that. But it's really important to have those things so that if, God forbid, you do have a loss, and I certainly hope that you don't, beyond the obvious loss that we're all struggling with during the pandemic, but if a physical loss, you're going to need lots of proof of what your assets were before the loss and after. So now is a great time, particularly if business is slow, for you to really update and get your records in really good shape and know that you'll be able to access them either through a cloud or through some place where you've got those records in good shape. So you don't have to reconstruct things after the fact for your insurance company in order to get a fair and full settlement. So finally, I want to talk briefly about your business interruption losses from COVID. My organization runs a program called Advocacy in Action that sort of goes hand in hand with our preparedness and our recovery programs. And through the advocacy program, we work on issues that are impacting large numbers of people in insurance. And obviously, the business interruption piece of your losses due to the shutdowns from the pandemic, your compliance with the public safety orders, the fact that many of you have lost the use of your business because you functionally cannot operate it. Those should be compensable if you have business interruption coverage. The problem is, as many or maybe all of you know, that the insurance industry's response to the COVID, to the public safety shutdown orders had been to come in very strong, very early, and very loud with very well-crafted messaging to tell the business community, I'm so sorry, but we're not going to be paying those losses. And so my organization, in response to that, is actually, we have a national initiative, our COVID business interruption loss recovery initiative. I'm going to briefly share in the minute or so I've got left. This is the library that you will find at our website, uphelp.org. It is specifically for businesses of all sizes. We go through some very important basics about how to put a claim in. If you get an immediate no, who can you talk to get a second opinion? Because even though the insurance industry has had a very unified voice saying that none of the COVID BI claims would be honored because of fine print exclusions and other reasons, that is really only part of the story. The real truth is some of your claims should be covered, depending on the wording in your policies, and you should not give up without having an expert policyholder attorney take a look at your policy. And at least, if you don't like attorneys, you don't want to talk to an attorney, that's fine, but at least poke around on this website a little bit so that you can get some ideas, because this fight is to get coverage for businesses to help you either stay in business or recoup your losses so you can reorganize, is really just beginning. We are just getting to the appeals courts. So don't give up yet on if you do have business interruption insurance and your insurer, you put a claim in and they told you that none of your losses are covered. My message to you is don't stop there. Get another opinion, because obviously private insurance money is a critically important tool for you as a business to get to stay in business during these challenging times. And all the wonderful programs that the treasurer outlined are very important, particularly for tax credits and things like that. But if you have no income at all, you certainly should take your best shot at getting whatever insurance benefits might be available. So I want to thank Jim and the organizers and the Chino Chamber for hosting this and for having me, and really encourage people to use all these free resources and know that you are not alone in the challenges you're facing. There's a lot of other businesses that are struggling right there with you, and a lot of public officials like Treasurer Ma that are working overtime to try to keep you afloat. So thank you again.
Thank you, Amy. That's very encouraging information I think you're sharing here, and I encourage anybody who's attending this today, if you'd like to ask any questions of our panelists, please post them in the chat screen. I'm sure our panelists will be happy to answer. So thank you once again, Amy. Our last speaker is Bob Spence. And as Daniel mentioned, Bob is involved, especially in international trade. He brings over 35 years experience, in fact, in the field of international trade, foreign direct investment, and real estate development. He has started his career as managing director of the Tokyo office of the Georgia Department of Industry and Trade, which I think is a very interesting way that he got involved. I'd like to hear more about that. For over a decade, he was entrenched in the Japanese business community in Southern California doing his work. And in the field of international trade, he has exported products to Southeast Asia. He has developed a market entry strategies for e-commerce entry into China and Japan. Currently, he is most active in the Vietnamese market, which, as you all know, is on a huge growth cycle. He's the vice chair of the Inland Empire District Export Council, and he's a licensed real estate professional as well. Add that to his portfolio in California. Bob has a presentation that he's going to bring to us, but he has an extensive education, by the way, Florida State University, Masters of Arts in International Relations. He also studied abroad at Sophia University in Tokyo, Japan. Had a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science and History as well. And he's certified global business professional. So I think Bob brings this portfolio to this presentation, and I think we are eager to hear what he has to say. So Bob, are you ready to share?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Angela, thank you for that. So before I get started in the actual presentation, I do have to say that I definitely have an affinity for Chino and Chino Hills. I lived in Chino Hills for many years before moving to Ontario. Actually started my entrepreneurship in Chino 30 years ago. And I, because I'm a Rotarian, I've had many opportunities to visit both the morning and the new club Rotary meetings in Chino. And so a very strong affinity there. So just a typical Inland Empire guy. Now, you know, the new normal, are you prepared? So here's my full disclosure. I've been a Boy Scout leader for 30 years. The motto is be prepared. Turns out when you're training young people on this concept of be prepared, the concept is very simple. The implementation is very complex. So turns out it's no different if you're a small business owner. This is the one thing that pretty much any business owner really doesn't want to think about. They don't want to deal with it. They want it to go away. And then when it happens and they are not prepared, there's a lot of crying going on. So let me just suggest that let's look at some facts and figures, and then I'm going to give you some ideas of how to be prepared. So Angela, if you go to the next slide, please. All right, so we all know about the wildfires, but here's where it gets really nasty. 400 to 500 fires per year in California, and we know this number is increasing. And on that note, when we all thought the fire season was over, what happened? We had a wildfire in Chino Hills, right next to Chino. So no one is immune from this, no matter where you live in California. Fire tornadoes. This is the nasty of all nasties. You can look up the photographs yourself on Google it, whatever, and you will see where fire trucks and major vehicles were thrown down the road in the middle of a firestorm, which created its own tornado. There's a lot of that going on. Bizarre, but very real. Climate change, we know about the less winter snow, longer summers, and we're year-long fire climate. 2011, 2016, 150 million trees were killed by bark beetles. And what happened? All of those trees started burning up this past summer. And this will continue for many, many, many years. 2020 was the hottest August on record. Dry thunderstorms, which people were asking, how did all these fires get started anyway? It wasn't just some guy in the parking lot. No, 12,000 dry lightning strikes in California this year alone. The August complex fire in Sacramento area, 850,000 acres, the largest fire in California history. Creek fire generated lightning and just threw things in many directions. And the Creek fire generated lightning. And think about this, the fire itself generated lightning on and off for 12 hours. It creates its own microclimate. And you may say, well, what's that got to do with me? Let's do Chino Hills. Let's say some of this happens in Chino Hills. You don't live in Chino Hills. What about all those power distribution lines? What about those transformers? Well, the utility company can't get out there for what, maybe a week, because they don't want to get their vehicles thrown across the road in a tornado that was created by the firestorm. So there are a lot of issues here that don't come to mind every day, but they're very real. Next slide, please. But there are very many things that we can do as small business people to just help ourselves get ready. Yes, you do need an emergency action plan, and don't freak out over this. Most of this stuff is readily available for free on the internet. Go to FEMA. If there's nothing else you want to memorize FEMA. They have lots and lots and lots of information, and it's all free and it's all spelled out, and there are lots of templates that you can utilize. But you really do need to think about how are you going to prepare yourself and prepare your employees in case something really nasty happens and you need an evacuation policy and procedure. And many people probably have this. The question is, when's the last time you had a drill? 5 years ago or 10 years ago? You need to do these regularly, because when the day comes that you really need to do this, no one's going to remember that drill that took place 5 years ago. So as a business owner, you need to really focus on those types of issues. Down here, we've got names, titles, departments, telephone numbers of individuals, both within and outside your company, because you need to have this handy. You need to put it in your purse. You need to put it in your wallet. You know, it's fine to have it on the internet, but one of the things that may go down in the emergency is the internet. So you really need to think about alternative methods so that when you really need something, it's absolutely at your fingertips. Rescue and medical duties for any workers designed to perform them, which I'm going to talk about on the next slide. And what you really want to do is assess what capabilities already exist among your employees, which brings us to the next slide. So some of you may or may not be familiar with what's called the Community Emergency Response Team. I'm a member. I took the training, and after taking the training, I am also now certified to work within the City Hall, which is another level of training as a community volunteer. But here's the deal with the Community Emergency Response Team. This is all about what do we do before the professionals arrive. Because in an emergency, certainly an earthquake being a very good example, those firemen or policemen, there may be so many things going on in so many different areas, they may not even be able to get to you for hours, maybe even a day. But what about emergency triage for people that are hurt? People will learn that through the Community Emergency Response Team program. And how do you put out a very small fire? And I mean really small fire. And by the way, if it takes you more than 30 seconds to put it out, it's too big. Forget it. But these are the things that you learn so that you yourselves can control your life while you're waiting for help to come. The governor's office has an emergency service. Many communities have emergency service entities embedded within the government. Reach out to your local city hall, find out what that is, find out what they can do or how they can help, so you will be better prepared. I want to mention about the amateur radio emergency service. I'm an amateur radio operator. The average person on the street says, yeah, that's, what do those guys do? Who cares? When the emergency comes, you'll care a lot. When nothing else is working, this will be working, because this is communications through a phone. You have to have a license. Find out if there's anyone in your organization that is an amateur radio operator, and ask them if they can, as a convenience to your company or your shop, bring one of their, little, we call handheld talkies and just keep it at your place of business so that when there's an emergency, they already have the equipment that they need to make an emergency call. Now, next slide, please. So let's talk about communication. So why is it that your cell phone may not work? I don't want to get really technical, but let me just say this. I think some people realize, some people don't realize, cell phones are based on what's called line of sight, which means all these cell phone towers that are everywhere, when 2 or 3 or 4 of them go down in your area, as in the case of an earthquake, that could very easily happen, your cell phone will not work, okay? And it may not work for quite some time. There are other reasons that it may not work, which sounds more obscure, but are very realistic. And again, when we're talking about disasters, things that could possibly happen, here's one that people have no idea, but it's coming. It's a little bit technical, but now we're in a new sunspot cycle. They come every 11 years. We've started a new cycle. It will hit its height in about 5 years from now. So what? Well, at the height of the sunspot cycles, it's estimated there will be 2 to 3 coronal mass ejections from the sun every day. Guess where they're headed? All those communication satellites circling the Earth. If you're in the wrong place in the wrong time, it will affect you. You say, nah, it wouldn't happen. 1989, a coronal mass ejection knocked out the entire city of Quebec. And we were nowhere nearly as dependent on these satellites then as we are today. So what are you going to do if something like that happens? Walkie-talkies are like $15. At least you can communicate among your own staff, within a reasonable distance to make sure that, oh, I see this, I see that, oh, somebody's hurt, or what do I do? Just simple things that don't cost you a lot of money, but you've got to prepare yourself for the fact that your cell phone may not work. Power and utility, again, I talked about, transformers going down, all types of things can happen. Because even for something as simple as your communications plan, you're thinking, well, I have a UPS. Okay, that's fine. But do you have a massive generator or something? What are you going to do when you don't have power? Are there any other mechanisms that you are thinking about to make sure that it's a safe environment? Transportation. Now, here's the thing about transportation. People will say, well, something happens, everyone will go home. Look at that photo down there in the corner. You couldn't go home. The freeway was broken in half. You really don't know what's going to happen in these severe events. So let's say you have 10 people in your shop. Do you have, enough to, say, feed them for a couple of days? Do you have, maybe you bought some extra cots, or maybe you have some extra blankets? It doesn't have to be some massive, complicated plan. It's just enough to get us through the emergency. Buying some tents may sound silly, but it won't sound so silly if you're dealing with tents in the parking lot rather than inside the building when you have 5 aftershocks in the next 2 days. So again, the specific plan is going to be tailored to the needs of every individual business owner, but these are just some basic concepts to kind of get it in your mind that spend a little time, think through it. There are plenty of resources. We ourselves are a resource. FEMA is a great resource. Your local community, cities are resources. Take a little time, put some basic plan together, and you'll be very glad you did it when you actually need it. And that's it, Jim, and thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Bob. That's very informative. We really appreciate all the work you put into those slides, especially. So you kind of brought it all to life. The fire that we had recently in Chino Hills was kind of scary. We did evacuate, as you know, several thousand people, that were in the immediate burn zone. Unfortunately, no structures were lost, but it was, I think, another good wake-up call for all of us that some of our communities that are in these emergency-prone areas need to always be vigilant and be aware of what resources are available, like the kind that all of our panelists today are talking about. Do we have any questions from attendees? Since we have a few attendees on, we don't have a lot. Perhaps we could open up the microphone to them. Is that possible? Angela?
Yes. So we do welcome anybody who would like to ask a question, either drop your question in the chat or use the Q&A function, or if you'd like to talk, raise your hand and I can bring you in to ask a question by voice. So please do not hesitate to speak up if you do have a question. I will also share a screen of our consultants.
Perfect.
And their contact information. So as we've heard from all the panelists, these disasters you really don't know what's going to happen. Even the pandemic, I mean, we've become sort of familiar with the situation, but still it's an actively evolving thing, and you really don't know what's going to happen. Every small business is different, every household is different. So even though our panelists have provided some really valuable information in general, if you would like to make a specific plan for your small business, our team of consultants, which are listed on the slide right now, and then their contact information is below, they will be able to help you put together a plan that is tailored to your small business and help you be prepared for whatever might happen in the future. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're so happy to help you get through these difficult times. And we're so happy to be able to be this kind of resource.
Yes, perfect. So are there any questions? Please feel free to raise your hand. So we have these resources here for you. So I recognize a few names. Is everybody unmuted? All right, looks like there's one on the chat screen from Christopher. Let's see. Using the recent fire as an example, we were one of the families that had to evacuate for the fires. We were not at home at that time, but my daughter was. We found it very difficult to get information. What's the best way to find that information? I'm assuming during a disaster to get updated information. Can any of our panelists answer that?
I imagine you have CERT, NERT. Do you have a Nixle? Do you have a local subscription that you can do to get alerts on your cell phone?
Christopher, you can speak up if you like. So. Mike, there we go. Mike's unmuted. Go ahead, Christopher.
Thanks. Yeah, so we were finally able to get it, I think a day later, got access to some of the alerts that came from Chino Hills. But I get, trying to call there, I guess, because of the pandemic, this is an unusual situation. Their offices were closed. Nobody was actually there. So it was just a little frantic. We were out of town when this occurred. But, hearing from my daughter, she had to evacuate, the fire department at 2 o'clock in the morning, hitting our ring bell. We were like, we didn't know where to get information. It was a little unnerving for a while there. Just wondering in the future, how, what is obviously I'm on that Chino Hills alert system, but, what is the best way to find information when something like that occurs? And maybe not everybody has had that unfortunate situation occur to them.
So go ahead, can anybody answer?
I'll just throw in, and it's a very challenging question, but I think you already took one of the better paths of pursuit here. And interestingly enough, as silly as it might seem, don't ever underestimate your AM radio, okay? Because that actually will be a very good source of information about, you know, a lot of things, especially, you know, the news on the hour channels. I mean, you can even call them if you can get a hold of them, you know. They may be able to even give you other resources. Beyond that, it's kind of sporadic, you know. I mean, if you can get on the FEMA website, they may probably have some information for you that's specific to your area. The NOAA, which is the National Weather Channel, may not always come into play, but they have they're announcing weather conditions 24 hours a day, all the time. They have like 3 different channels. But beyond that, I think, you know, again, it's the local, like you said, the local city that under normal circumstances would probably be the better resource in any event, because they're already in direct communication with their local police and fire department, which is that ultimate, you know, feed line that's giving them all the most pertinent information that they can get out to the community. And in an emergency disaster itself, there usually is a public information officer that is connected to this whole process. So oddly enough, the channel you chose might have been the best one, just didn't work because of COVID-19.
I was just going to add that the city of Chino does have an emergency notification center. And you know, though, I'll say this, Chris, after every fire, people express public concern that they wish they had better information about the evacuation. So I think you know, that the public agencies are always working to try to get the information out easier. I mean, the best thing would be if it was a universal 211 or 311. But I think each area, your city has its own emergency notification line. But getting the alerts on your cell phone from your fire department, I would recommend, you know, checking in with your local fire agency and ask them what they recommend.
Okay.
I'd also like to add, in our area, there's there's an app called Nextdoor. And in our area, all the local neighbors are tied into there, where if we're in a high fire risk area. So if there's a puff of smoke or anyone smells smoke, then everyone's on the chat, see what's going on, along with other issues like a fire engine coming up the hill, what have you. So this is like very localized and very specific information. It might be good to either start one in your area using this app or join one that may be existing. We found this. I'm sorry?
We have the Nextdoor app for the area, but the information was very anecdotal and
Right.
it was unhelpful, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Well, it's actually been very helpful in cases up here. You know, information in, information out. So
I think if I can add to that a little bit, I think it speaks to the quality maybe of your local Nextdoor group or Facebook social media group. The only postings I usually trust that I see if I'm looking for information are the ones that look like they're coming from an official source, at least, because I think I agree with you, Christopher. Sometimes we get all kinds of crazy theories also that are posted on social media. But it does sound, Daniel, like your Nextdoor has some very responsible, informed posters. So that's probably good. So we have a lot of speculators on some of our local ones, in my opinion, but official postings, I think, are of value, and I do look for those if I go to social media. So, but thanks. Christopher, did we answer your questions okay, or?
You did. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anybody else have a question before we move on? I know we have insurance representatives here and bankers, and so certainly there's some resources they might be interested in. Okay. I'll do what Zeb does, going once, going twice. 3 times. Any questions? All right, well, first of all, I want to say thank you to all of our panelists and the team that's represented here today, especially Treasurer Ma. Thank you so much for showing as well and gracing this panel with all of the resources the state has to offer. We in the Chamber, as you know, are committed to supporting our local businesses and nonprofits to assure that we can create a networking community that is engaged and involved, and also we help each other. And this is just one other example of the resources that are available that we would like our local business community to be aware of. And we thank you so much for presenting today. I would like to turn this over now to our Executive Director, Zeb Wellborn, who would make a concluding remark or two, and then we'll be done. Zeb?
Yes, thank you, Jim. Can you guys all hear me?
Yep.
Well, and I apologize for being late to our meeting today. I'm involved in several organizations as a result of my duties, and one of those organizations is having an award ceremony today, so that went longer than it was supposed to. And I was one of the presenters there. But I just wanted to thank all of you for coming on, sharing your information with us. And like Jim mentioned, thank you for all of that. I'll just give some chamber updates about things that we have coming up right now for those of you that are in attendance. Number one, we're doing our virtual business expo month throughout the month of, we've expanded it. So it used to be the month of November. Now it's into December because we've had so many businesses signing up. So that's something that we will be putting on for November and December. We are going to be promoting businesses. So I'd encourage all of you to help support local businesses through our hashtag. We're calling it hashtag CV Biz Month. So I encourage you all to follow along on our social media channels for that. And then I think from our government affairs committee, we've been, one of the challenges that we've had during this time period is the influx of information that's coming in from all angles, and we're trying to be the consolidator of that to help support our businesses. So again, I just want to thank you guys for coming in, helping sharing your expertise for all the challenges that our businesses are facing, and giving our businesses an opportunity to come in and learn from you guys and figure out how best to support their business and navigate all the challenges we're all facing right now. So with that, I just want to say thank you, and thank you everybody just thank you everybody. and thank you all for the work that you do. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Zeb. And to conclude, this will be offered up. It's a recording, so we will post this as well on our chamber website. And again, I hope everyone that attended today found this of value, and feel free to reach out to these resources. We will turn this now over to our host, Angela, and thank you very much again.
Sorry, Jim. Let me share one more thing. Normally what I try to do is just try to give a little shouts out to folks that are involved here as well. So let me do that real quick. I want to give a shout out to our Legislative Action Committee. So Chris Crump, he is with Escape Pods. Hector Samtani is with New York Life. We have Carrie Voorhees is with Voorhees and Lotsoff Law Group. So I want to thank you guys for coming in attendance today. From our board of directors, we have Jim Gallagher from Chino Hills Dog Park Nonprofit. So I want to thank you, Jim, for coordinating and running our meeting today. Gigi Werner from Chino Commercial Bank. She is our chairperson of the board. So thank you, Gigi. And I also know that Melody is with her today. Melody is an ambassador of the chamber. And then Jim Maloney is also an ambassador with the chamber. So I want to thank you guys for your attendance today and for all that you guys do for the chamber. Thank you.
All right, so that concludes. Angela?
Yeah, thank you so much, Jim, and everyone at the Chino Chamber for sponsoring. So I will be sending a follow-up email with the resources and the links that was mentioned in this talk, and then this talk will also be available as a recording for you to view later on. So I wanted to thank everybody again for coming and being here, and hope that everybody stays safe during this holiday season. So thank you.
All right.
Adios.
Bye.